Can you imagine your most anticipated birthday turning into a nightmare right before your eyes? My 18th birthday, a day that should have been filled with joy, laughter, and the warmth of family, was shattered by a heartbreaking message. The party was canceled. But behind the reason my sister was upset because her trip got canceled lies a complex web of favoritism, broken trust, and hidden family secrets buried deep beneath the surface of what seemed like a perfect family. This was not just about a party being called off. It was betrayal. Silent screams muffled beneath a facade of peace. I screamed. I stood up and fought with everything I had, despite fierce opposition from my parents and sister. This battle wasn't just about a birthday. It was about fairness, about the right to be loved and respected. When tensions peaked, my grandfather, the figure I once thought was just a shadow in our family story, appeared like a savior, shining light on the cruelty I endured. He stood up for me, exposing my parents' denial and changing everything overnight. But the fight wasn't over. My sister, the golden child who always got their support, kept chasing me, threatening and trying to control my life in ruthless ways, forcing me to rely on a close friend and to stand strong against violence. You'll hear about the fake apologies, my parents' schemes, and my firm resolve with conditions to protect myself. This story isn't only pain and hurt. It's growth from wounds, a journey to regain inner strength, and ultimately, hope for a brighter future. My story could be anyone's, the story of those who have felt abandoned, misunderstood, or treated unfairly by their own family. Have you ever experienced something like this? Tell me in the comments below where you're watching from and share how this story touched you. Growing up, I lived in the shadows of my sister, the so-called golden child. To the outside world, we were just siblings, maybe with the usual ups and downs. But behind closed doors, I was the one invisibilized, the one made to feel less worthy, less seen. It started with the smallest things that seemed trivial but piled up like heavy stones in my heart. The last slice of pizza? Always hers. New clothes? She got the trendy brands. I inherited her hand-me-downs, sometimes worn thin and faded. I was told I had to have my own style, never to copy hers, even though deep down, I just wanted to belong. When friends came over, I watched from the sidelines as my parents doted on her, checking if she needed anything while I sank deeper into silence. The loneliness gnawed at me every day. I remember nights staring at the ceiling, asking myself why my parents' love felt conditional, given freely to her, but rationed out to me like a scarce resource. The worst part was hearing the whispered comparisons, the sighs of disappointment when I didn't live up to some invisible standard. My sister, 5 years older, had a privilege I could never access. And whenever I tried to speak up, it was dismissed. I was too sensitive, or too dramatic. Even my closest relatives seemed blind to this invisible divide, or perhaps they chose not to see. I internalized the message. My feelings didn't matter. It was a quiet betrayal, intimate and cruel, a slow erosion of my spirit. And yet, through all this, a small ember of hope survived inside me. I clung to it, desperate to believe that I deserved more fairness, more respect, more love. But with every sacrifice I made, every moment I compromised, it seemed that ember flickered, threatened to extinguish. One of the few people who noticed my struggle was my best friend, someone who had always stood by me, even when I barely found the strength to stand for myself. He saw through the smiles I wore like armor and understood the battles I fought in silence. He told me once, "You don't have to settle for less. You deserve to fight for your own happiness." His words lingered with me, quiet but strong. But the cracks in my family's facade eventually widened, leading to that painful night. The night my carefully held-in sorrow exploded, changing everything. As that storm approached, I didn't yet know that this would be the breaking point, the moment when silent wounds would be ripped open, when the darkness inside would finally be confronted, and when life would force me onto a new path. The day I turned 18 was supposed to be a celebration, a milestone, a rite of passage, a moment when all my dreams felt within reach. Instead, it descended into chaos and heartbreak, a night where the world seemed to betray me in the most personal way. The morning started with a fragile hope. I knew my sister's trip had been canceled because of a severe storm, but I dare believe that shouldn't steal my day. I had spent weeks planning, my parents had promised a big party, invitations were sent out, and I imagined the laughter of friends filling the house. For a moment, I even felt the weight of years of silence begin to lift. But that fragile hope crumbled fast. My sister's sadness turned into a demand, a threat even, that if she couldn't have her fun, neither would I. The nerve of that struck me like a punch to the gut. To think that her pain meant erasing my existence that day. And in that moment, my parents folded under pressure, canceling everything at the last minute without bothering to tell me. Instead, I was left alone, waiting in vain for guests who never arrived, swallowed by a silence louder than any party noise. When I finally confronted my parents, their excuses felt like betrayal. They told me they canceled because my sister was fragile and it was heartless to celebrate when she was hurt. Yet, behind closed doors, I felt invisible, discarded like a piece in a cruel game I never consented to play. The anger and pain within me exploded. Years of feeling second best erupted in a scream that filled the house. My words were sharp, raw, and untamed. I accused them of favoritism, neglect, and hypocrisy. But their worried looks and attempts to silence me only deepened the divide. My feelings were a nuisance to them, a disturbance to the fragile peace they maintained for my sister. Then came the confrontation that crossed boundaries I wished could have stayed intact. When my sister stormed in to defend herself and my parents, claiming I was the spoilt, entitled one, I lost control. The fight turned physical, as if years of emotional wounds needed a visible battle to manifest what had been buried inside. In the midst of the storm, a knock at the door changed everything. My grandfather entered with the weight of a commanding presence. A man whose reputation alone could quiet a room, he faced the chaos with a fierce gaze. For the first time, someone outside my parents' circle truly heard me. I laid bare my pain, the neglect, the unfairness, my voice trembling but relentless. He scolded my parents with a fire I had only dreamed of, revealing secrets they tried to hide, how he had quietly supported the family financially, how the favoritism was a betrayal not only of me, but of their responsibilities as parents. His anger cut through the silence like a sword, exposing wounds no one dared speak about. My sister's protests only fueled his fury. He called out her entitlement and demanded accountability where none had been shown. Then, he made a decision that would change my life, to take me away from the house that had become a cage, to protect me from the very people who should have loved me unconditionally. As I packed my bags, every mixed feeling, fear, relief, sadness, hope, crashed over me. I was leaving behind a home that had broken me, stepping into the unknown with a grandfather who, for the first time, made me feel truly seen. But the storm wasn't over. The battles that followed would test my strength, force me to define who I was beyond the hurt, and set the stage for a fight not only for survival, but for my very identity. When my grandfather stepped into that tense living room that night, it was as if a storm finally began to clear. Though what he brought with him was no gentle breeze. He wasn't just an old man with years behind him. He was a towering presence, a man who carried the weight of decades of experience as a formidable lawyer. His eyes held both disappointment and unwavering resolve, and in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, the possibility of justice. As I poured out my story to him, every painful detail, every betrayal, I saw his face harden. My words spilled over like a dam breaking. The endless favoritism toward my sister, the silence of my parents when I sought fairness, the lies they told to my friends and relatives. I described the suffocating feeling of being invisible within my own family, the sharp edges of every compromise I'd made. Grandpa listened without interruption, his usual quiet dignity replaced by a rare and fiery indignation. Then, with a voice low but trembling with power, he unleashed his scolding on my parents. His words cut through years of deceit like a blade. He revealed the truth that shook everything, how he had been secretly supporting our family financially all along, even footing the bills for the party that my parents had tried to claim as their generosity. It was a betrayal layered on top of countless others. The room was thick with tension as Grandpa dismantled my parents' excuses, exposing their hypocrisy. How they coddled my sister, shielding her fragile feelings, while dismissing mine as unworthy of attention. My parents sat silent, unable to answer the harsh truth. My sister, ever defiant, tried to justify her demands, saying her canceled trip justified destroying my special day. But Grandpa's wrath was unyielding. He called her what she was, entitled and selfish, demanding she recognize that the world did not revolve around her wishes. The defiance she had wielded so freely suddenly faltered under his gaze. Then came the moment that altered my entire world. Grandpa told my parents he would no longer provide financial support. Without his help, their life, at least theirs as they knew it, would crumble. And then, turning to me, he offered sanctuary, a chance to escape the suffocating shadows of neglect and favoritism. "Pack your bags," he said quietly but firmly. "You deserve better than this." I hesitated for a heartbeat, torn between lingering ties and the hope burning in his eyes. But that hope outshone every fear. I knew that staying meant accepting continual rejection. Leaving, uncertain as it was, meant taking my future into my own hands. The decision hit my parents like a thunderclap, their protests echoing through the night, but it was clear Grandpa's resolve was unshakable. As I stood there packing, I felt a tumult of emotions. Relief, sadness, anger, and a fragile new courage all at once. This was more than a simple escape. It was a profound turning point, the moment when the scales of justice shifted in my favor, when the person I needed most stepped forward to fight for me. But while Grandpa's protection was a lifeline, it also meant stepping into an entirely new world, one filled with promise yet shadowed by uncertainty. It was the beginning of a journey not only away from the family that hurt me but toward healing and discovering who I truly was beneath the scars. Stepping into my grandfather's home was like stepping into an entirely different world, a world both unfamiliar and strangely comforting. The house smelled of old books and polished wood, and the quiet was not the suffocating silence I'd known with my parents, but a calm that invited reflection. Yet, beneath this calmness, I carried a storm of emotions, fear, uncertainty, and the heavy weight of betrayal that still clung to me. Living with Grandpa was far from easy at first. It wasn't just about adjusting to a new place, it was about recalibrating my entire sense of self. For years, I had been the invisible child, the shadow cast by my sister's golden glow. Now I was suddenly the center of attention, which felt both strange and overwhelming. I grappled with conflicting feelings. Relief to be finally seen and valued, but also guilt for leaving behind the only home I'd ever known, even if it was a home that had hurt me. Grandpa, with his quiet strength, never pushed me. He gave me the space to be angry, sad, or silent, but he also held firm as a rock to lean on. His own regrets sometimes spilled over in moments of honesty. He admitted how he wished he had acted sooner, how he regretted not shielding me from the pain. Hearing his remorse humanized him in a way that made our bond deeper. He wasn't just a savior, but a flawed man seeking redemption through protecting me. Then there was my best friend, the one who had stood by me before, always ready with a steadying presence. When he came over to the house, the walls seemed less daunting. He became a bridge connecting my past and present, reminding me that I wasn't alone, that I could trust again. He helped me see beyond the wounds, encouraging me to rebuild my confidence and hope for what was to come. But even here, in this sanctuary, the shadows of my old life occasionally cast a long silhouette. I found myself wrestling with memories, flashbacks of moments when my parents' neglect had cut deepest, moments of loneliness and betrayal. Sometimes, I would retreat into silence, wrestling with a whirlpool of emotions that felt too vast to control. Yet, Grandpa's patient presence was always a steady light in those dark moments, guiding me gently toward healing. Slowly, the walls I'd built around my heart began to crumble. I started imagining my future, not as a mere escape, but as a chance to thrive. College applications and dreams of independence filled my days, giving me a sense of purpose beyond the pain. I began to see myself not as a victim, but as someone capable of reshaping her destiny. Our relationship, too, blossomed with nuances. Quiet conversations over late-night tea, shared laughter that warmed the coldest days, and moments when words weren't necessary, but connection was unmistakable. Grandpa taught me that healing wasn't about forgetting the past, but learning to carry it without letting it define me. Yet, as comforting as this new life was, I knew the past wasn't behind me entirely. The conflicts with my sister and parents were far from resolved, lurking on the horizon like a storm waiting to return. Still, with Grandpa by my side and my own growing strength, I felt prepared to face whatever came next. Just when I thought escaping home would bring peace, the fight was far from over. It had merely changed shape. My sister, the golden child, didn't want to lose control, and neither did my parents. Their voices, once muffled behind closed doors, now became louder weapons pointed squarely at me. The confrontation began unexpectedly outside my grandfather's house. I saw her waiting there, silent, and watching me like a storm about to break. That instinctive gut feeling told me something was wrong. I asked a close friend, my steadfast protector and confidant, someone who knew every painful detail of my past, to walk me home. His presence was a shield. He was my anchor against the looming threat. When my sister finally spoke, her words were venomous. She refused to discuss family issues in front of a stranger, but that didn't stop her from attacking me, blaming me for tearing the family apart, accusing me of selfishness and cruelty. She claimed our parents were drowning in stress because of me, trying to guilt-trip me into submission. But I saw through it all. Her logic mirrored what had twisted our family dynamic from the start. If I can't be happy, neither can you. It was the same bitter sting she had wielded to snatch away my birthday celebration, the same weapon crafted from entitlement and manipulation. I refused to dignify her with a civil conversation. When I finally told her, "If I can't be happy, neither can you," she exploded, screaming, curses flying, until suddenly she attacked. I was knocked down with the weight of her body and my backpack pressing against me. The world spun for a moment as pain and shock collided. But my friend was there, strong and unwavering. He physically separated us, holding her back with calm strength. In that brief but charged moment, I realized I was not alone anymore, not trapped in endless suffering. Though furious and bruised, I reacted with a slap, a symbolic stand, a boundary drawn in the sand. I told her plainly that if she ever tried to attack me again, I would not hesitate to involve the law. Back at Grandpa's, we debated whether to call the police, but I sensed it wasn't worth deepening the family wounds with legal battles. She had already painted herself into a corner. The consequences at home were already biting hard. Meanwhile, my parents' messages flooded in, apologies thin and insincere, demands coded with manipulation. They implied their regret was genuine, yet twisted everything to put the blame squarely on me. When I set a clear condition, that I would only consider returning if my sister moved out, they dismissed it as cold and unreasonable. Knowing how much they relied on my grandfather's financial support, I watched in disbelief as their true priorities surfaced. Money first, family second. Later, they dryly informed me they no longer needed Grandpa's help, effectively cutting me out of their lives. Their ultimatum stung, but it no longer surprised me. I responded once, then blocked them. That silence became my shield. The end of communication wasn't just a wall, but a rebirth, a firm declaration that I would no longer be a pawn in their game. Through it all, the fight transformed me. The pain of betrayal forged inner steel, and every insult, every attack solidified my resolve to protect my peace and take ownership of my life on my terms. There were moments of doubt, loneliness, and regret for what it means to sever ties with family runs deep. But I knew this battle was necessary, and every scar it left bore witness to my strength. As I reflect on this tumultuous journey, from the crushing weight of feeling invisible and unwanted to the fiery battles that tore my family apart, I realize that pain has been both my greatest adversary and my harshest teacher. Each wound, every heartbreak, carved layers of resilience into my soul, shaping who I am today. The betrayals cut deeper than I ever imagined. To be rejected by the people who should have been my strongest allies left scars that sometimes still ache in quiet moments. Yet it is within that ache that I found my true strength, a fierce determination to rewrite my story and refuse to be defined by their neglect. Grandpa remains my unwavering pillar, not just as a guardian, but as a source of wisdom and unconditional love. Our bond, once untested, has blossomed into something rare and profound. He taught me that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the past or excusing the harm done. It means breaking free from its chains to walk forward freely. And though I still struggle with moments of anger toward him for not intervening sooner, I have learned to embrace empathy for his own battles and love him fiercely in spite of imperfections. In this newfound peace, I began weaving a life of my own design. College acceptance letters arrived one by one, each one a gateway to independence and dreams once buried beneath family shadows. The friends I made and the relationship I nurtured with my boyfriend, my loyal confidant and protector, became anchors in this fresh chapter. They reminded me daily that I am worthy of love, belonging, and happiness. Yet growth did not erase the complexities of family. I learned that healing is rarely linear. It's a mosaic of setbacks, breakthroughs, and hard choices. Watching my sister finally move out marked a bittersweet milestone, not a victory over her, but a reclaiming of space for myself. The estrangement from my parents, bitter as it was, crystallized a painful truth. Sometimes love means letting go. Though the road has been brutal, the journey shaped a person who stands taller, speaks louder, and lives with eyes wide open. The child who once whispered her pain into the darkness now tells her story boldly, so that others who feel trapped and unseen might see a path toward hope. If this story resonates with you, or if you've faced your own battles within family walls, I invite you to share your experience in the comments below. No one should endure pain alone, and together, our stories light the way toward healing. Thank you for joining me on this journey. The pain was real, the struggles relentless, but so is the hope that carried me through. And I know now, more than ever, that the future is mine to create. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this journey with me. If you found this story meaningful, please consider liking the video and sharing it with others who might relate or benefit from it. Your support really helps this channel grow and reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories like this. It means a lot to have you here. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please drop a comment below with your feedback, ideas, or even your own experiences. Your voice matters, and it helps us create content that truly resonates. Thanks again, and I look forward to connecting with you in the next video.